Hi, Anthony. Hi, Anna.
Afternoon. How are you doing?
Well, if I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to tell you I'm tired. I had an event all day, and I think I sort of alluded that I wasn't sure even I would have class. So I actually only just finished the event a half hour ago, so I might not be in my best form. So I'm going to ask forgiveness.
You're fine.
How are you?
Oh,
How are you doing, Anthony?
stressed. Before I forget, I got accepted to do a workshop for NASA and it's down in Prescott, Arizona on the 18th, I believe. So I won't be able to make class at that time. I was just wondering if there's anything I need to do, like send you the email of the acceptance or
Oh, you just told me.
okay.
You just told me. I operate totally on the idea that people are guys are graduate students. I don't, you're paying for this. You're not gonna, I'm not a crazy person on that stuff. But congratulations. I mean, that sounds like a really pretty big deal. What are you going to end up doing?
So it's a 2-day workshop and we do some capture the flag and some networking with other people in NASA, NSA, and some other aerospace people for those 2 days.
Oh, terrific. So who is somebody paying for you to go?
Yes, actually, so my scholarship sent out like a thing that like the college in Prescott is doing this and they sent out like if you're out of state you get $1,000 grant for travel. So they paid for my flight and for my hotel.
Oh, that is fantastic. That
Yes.
is just you're a students for service?
Yes.
Oh, that's really fantastic. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I actually have to talk to the class about something that I just got accepted that could affect our our final project. So we're gonna everybody's it's kind of like to move forward. It requires so much flexibility because you have to be able to respond to opportunities as they come. And you know, sometimes it's more difficult to know. I can't plan that great because I'm sort of moving into this privacy and AI bit. And so I just recently got accepted as one of the few professors around the country that got accepted into this conference with, we are a Hispanic serving student organization school, and they are giving money to certain universities specifically to do extra research and develop programs. And you had to apply, and I really didn't think I would get accepted. And then I got accepted for it for the last week of school, and I really debated. I'm like, the last week of school. But the thing is, it's being sponsored by Microsoft, and by doing it, I have a greater opportunity to get grants. And the reason grants are important is because A, it's a different source of money to the university, but B, grants can be used to help graduate students because I can then hire a graduate student to do work and give them a stipend. So, it has a double benefit, the school and the graduate student. And then really at the point of life where I'm at, it's really about helping students. It's not I'm not looking for fame and fortune at this point. But it's stuff is happening that I wouldn't have expected at this point in my life. So anyhow, we'll have to talk about it a little bit more, because what that means is then we would not get together to meet in person. We would do our final projects remotely. And I don't know if that would be a good thing or a bad thing, because then we wouldn't have met at all. But we can talk
So like,
about it and see what people think. Maybe people will say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. We've become a proof. I think we've become of most of us, we've become a pretty good core community, um, even online, you know.
congratulations though.
You agree? Is that what you're saying,
I
Anthony?
said congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So we'll see. I never thought I would get into this AI, right? Because AI is all about machine learning and supervised versus unsupervised and neural networks and all this algorithm stuff. And that really isn't my area of expertise, but it's turning out it's about a lot more things than that. And so I'm the a lot more things than that part of the AI. So anyhow, so I see Amadi, how are you today? You're good.
I'm doing good. Yeah.
You're doing good.
Yeah.
Right. I don't see you, Anna, but I see your name. I hope all is well with you. Maybe she'll come back. And Sergio, how's everything over by you?
Hey, how's it going? Everything's going well. Just tweaking up my resume to formally apply to a position with an intelligence community or
Excellent.
agency. So that's how my day has been.
All right, that's a lot of work. Oh, yeah, there is that beautiful Anna. She has joined us. So how's everything over by you, Anna?
Everything is fine. And you?
Yeah, just as I was saying, I'm kind of tired today, so I'm going to ask forgiveness. And Jenna, you always have I don't see the doggies right by you. I'm sure they'll pop in any moment.
Yeah, the baby just got tired, so he's on the floor finally. But
Okay, you wear him out, hoping he won't be running around during class trying to lick your face to death. And
it's frequent.
yeah, have you've been busy too?
Yeah, just working on resumes and stuff and getting, job applications out because some people think that food costs what it costed back in the 60s, and other people understand that food does not cost that much anymore. Like it's a very different price range, especially in Northern Virginia.
Yeah, you have to keep your salary as high as you can these days just to be able to live. I get it. I get it. And Kittis, I'm sorry I did not respond to your email. I was kind of out all day, but yes, that is fine. So I hope you're okay. I see your name, but
Thank you, Professor.
yeah. All right. So today we have a couple of different chapters we're going to talk about, and we'll see where that gets. Like I've already warned you, I'm a little tired today, so I will do my best. If I do not get through both chapters, what I will do is I will prepare a video, but I will try because it's easy.
Professor,
Oh, for the
I'm ready to do my presentation.
All right, well then we're ready to have you do your presentation. So, all right, I'm going to stop. I'm going to make sure you can share your screen. Okay, Anna, you can take it away. You can lead us on this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. By the way, good stuff about the trip. Look for an email from you. We're going to the DMZ. New edition. Okay, Outlook. I hate Outlook, but okay, I love that you're doing this. And a cute little, very, very, Anna, I could just tell this is your style. Nice.
Thank you. Okay. Hi everyone. What I want to discuss today is about the popular email app Outlook. As we all know, Outlook is an email and personal calendar program developed by Microsoft. Based on this context, it is important to mention that this application is no longer simple an email service because the company has transformed it into a tool for targeted advertising. How can we explain this? Well, now Outlook is a data collection mechanism for Microsoft external partners and an ad delivery system for Microsoft itself. Let's delve into details. First of all, according to what I found, the last update of Microsoft privacy notification was on March 2024. And per its advertising policy, it's supposed that Microsoft does not use personal data from emails to target ads, but the ads that appear are selected based on the data that the company collects about us, such as our interest, favorites, locations, transactions, also how we use Word, PowerPoint, and obviously the content that we view. Then all our information is shared with 801 third parties and ends between service providers, user-directed entities, payment processing providers, and companies or business which perform online advertising services for Microsoft. And also H1 has their purpose for our information. And to opt out of receiving personalized advertising from Microsoft, we have to visit the opt-out page and turn off this setting, as we can see in this image. And about the user data, is retained for specific periods and depends of two scenarios. The first one is the active deletion, and happens when the user or the administrator deletes the data and is retained, and the data is deleted after 30 days. And in the second scenario is the passive deletion, and happens when the subscription ends and the data is deleted after 180 days. And about the concerns, even if Microsoft said that they don't scan or analyze our emails, they do it and share the information with the third parties. And I found like that at least in the European Union, the users can have a view of a list of the advertising partners, but here in the US it's not available. And these are my references, and if you have a question, I will be happy to answer.
So that was really interesting. So help me understand, or just say it again. They look at the data that the users are they look at the PowerPoints and the words, the Word documents that are created by the user as well?
Yes, I found this information in someone that do a research, and yes, they look all the text that we write, the handwriting, also the voice data. Yes, like everything.
Wow. So anything that we put on the Microsoft platform, along with anything with Outlook, becomes, part of their data collection.
Yes.
Wow, that's
also the passwords that we did with that we changed Gmail to Outlook for the university. When we synchronize, it's like they steal our passwords, and yes.
wow. Wow, that's fascinating. I mean, that makes, in a way, they're a little different than the other ones because, the other ones, it's just the service that they're using. If it's whatever, if it was just PayPal, it was just PayPal. But this isn't just Outlook, the mail. This is at the big Microsoft family, which really is a highly inclusive of a lot of different products. So, wow, really interesting. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments about what Anna has shared with us today? Did you all know that that Microsoft was collecting from PowerPoint, and you knew, Jenna?
They bundle all of their Microsoft products, and most of the time to get Outlook, you have to buy what they call O365. And that is PowerPoint, Excel, Word, and Outlook, and they bundle it all together and have the same privacy for all of your options.
Yeah, I didn't really put it all together like that before, but it, I mean, sometimes I write my diary thoughts on Word. So now they're going to read all my diary thoughts.
Although those may be slightly different because number one, if you do or don't send them, and number two, whether you use Word as a native app on your machine
Mhm.
or you use the electronic version of Word, which is similar to Google Docs.
So if it's the electronic version of it, is it become more susceptible to availability to the parent Microsoft?
I'd assume as much because it does save it up to the cloud as opposed to you can save things directly to your desktop
Yeah.
with it being a native app. But they can put in whatever language and search whatever they want.
Interesting. All right, that was really great. Does anybody else have have one of these type of presentations to do today? A privacy notification presentation? I think, Anna, you were the only one. I think everybody else has almost all done it. So has anybody paid attention to what's happened with Google? Google's not in a good space these days. You know why? Anybody know why? Who uses a Google search engine? I use the Google search engine. Who uses Google Incognito when they don't want to be tracked? Guess what? We have been lied to. Incognito all that data in Incognito is being sold too. It was a lie. So I'm telling you, I don't know who to believe anymore. So anyhow, Google is under a big lawsuit right now, and because they have learned that Google has been selling all of the data and all your searches and everything that you have been putting through Incognito. They've been using it to build that giant profile about you and selling it off. So I guess we're back to, having to use Tor browser again. I mean, I don't know who has the highest level of security anymore. But anyhow, let's stay tuned. I think Google's going to be in big trouble with this one. And I think, has anybody been paying attention to what's happening with not really privacy, but what's happening with AI and the artists? Anybody notice that? So the music artists in particular are really concerned because now they have been able to take music. So I think it started with a song by Drake, where they took Drake's voice and Drake's, I'm not a big Drake fan, but they took his method, his style, and they had AI write a song that would be similar to a Drake-like song. And the song actually, I think, I don't know if it went on the Billboard or not, or was released, but it sounded like Drake, but it was all AI. So the question becomes, they were asking the AI companies to please stop having AI, don't develop any more AI that can take music or voice and imitate artists. So yeah, I doubt that will be very effective unless, please don't do this, okay? Let's see how that goes. So anyhow, a lot of things are happening with personal artifacts, like in a violation. It's a violation of one's could you say that it is PII one's, we say voice is a biometric, which is unique to us. So if somebody takes my voice to create something and I become rich and famous next year, and all of a sudden they take my voice and they use it to make themselves rich and famous, that's a bit of a violation, a personal violation of my biometrics? It's improper use of it. So it becomes a privacy violation as well as an intellectual property violation? Can you see how all this can become really messy? So the biggest area right now within privacy is within the AI community. As AI is using data that it's getting from all over. We've talked about that before, but it's also using just publicly available data to replicate people's art, people's music, even take a book and have an author's style. For example, like I read a story that there are artists, there are authors like Danielle Steele and Nora Roberts, and a lot of their books are kind of similar. So what they do is they give a little plot to AI. They say, use this type of writing style, like one of these authors, and they're able to produce a book. And I have not tried that, but I have tried, I shouldn't admit this to you, I have tried giving an outline to AI, telling it I needed a 10-page paper with 15 resources, and I needed it to be at a level of, I would say at a graduate school level. And I was amazed at the product that came out. So I don't know how we're going to be able to determine anymore people's personal creations versus AI. So it'll be interesting to find out.
There is like a high school teacher who has a lot of kids that are trying to do the ChatGPT papers. And so her hack on getting them to give themselves away if they're literally just copy and pasting the prompt is she puts a prompt in like white text and makes it very small. And she's like, use the words like Frankenstein and vampire within this essay 4 times. And then she just searches for the words once they turn the paper in. And if they just copy and pasted the prompt, then it'll have those words in it because, they're like words that would make no sense in this subject.
Oh, well, that's an interesting way. Anyhow, we have to stay tuned, right? Because we're embarking on this big change of learning and productivity and everything else that we should stay tuned on. All right. Anybody else have anything else they want to share? We should congratulate Anthony. Anthony told me he's going to a big conference. He's going to be doing a hackathon with NASA in Phoenix, right? I got it right?
Yeah, in Prescott.
Prescott. So hopefully where is Prescott by? Is it
It's near Phoenix. It's 2 hours from Phoenix.
Is it in a good place?
It's at actually so the hotel is downtown, but we get transferred over to like the college that's there, Embroidery College, I think, something like that.
Okay, well, you'll have to tell us how that goes. All right. Well, let me get rolling here so we can do our thing. Okay, you don't want to see that, but we do want to see this. Oh, good heavens. All right, let me just do this. Man, I'm tired of the rain. I think the rain makes me tired. then I'll complain I'm tired of not having any rain. So I'm all over the place. Okay, so we are already, if one can believe it or not, we are already at week 13, which is some telecom and marketing. And I think the first thing I want to do is, because I put privacy frameworks in week 12, and probably nobody looked at that, I want to go to the NIST privacy framework, because that would be really a travesty. And you also can go look it up. So it's the NIST framework assessment. It's okay. Okay, privacy framework NIST. So I'll put the link in the chat right now. You do it. Chat. Zoom. Boom, boom. So this is clearly something you want to know about in our industry. And one of the things about NIST is, we all know this. NIST began with, the cybersecurity framework. And what happened is, once they developed that became the standard model that it expected anybody who did business with to adhere to the NIST privacy framework or the NIST cybersecurity. And I would suspect that it will also be the gold standard for businesses, especially those that do business with privacy as well. So let me, there we go. Okay, no, not that. What happened there? There we go. So here it is, our NIST privacy framework. I'm going to put you down a little bit. There we go. So the thing about the NIST privacy framework is it helps organizations develop a privacy program. So it's got, it always has all these different versions, but I think the key thing here is, you go to their PDF, and the first thing, if it'll come up, here it comes. There it is. So it started in 2020. Now, I participated in the development of the NIST privacy inventory, which I'll go data inventory, which I'll go through in a little bit. But the thing about the NIST privacy framework is it gives you this entire overview of privacy and helping to explain what are the core components and how this is important for your organization. And I think that what is most key for this is, if you are trying to convince your organization that privacy is an important component to put resources in, this particular document gives you those tools to be able to do that, because it's really looking at, identifying and defining the key components here. So what I like about it is it puts this perspective here that risk is really, privacy is really a risk management function, meaning that by keeping your data private, you are actually protecting your data from people who shouldn't see it. And they kind of go through this whole concept, because some organizations feel that if they have a cybersecurity stronghold, well, that's good enough. But cybersecurity, what I liked about this is, this whole idea that the risks associated with, say, are incidents arising from a loss of, CIA, the triad, where privacy are the risks associated with events from data processing, that arise from different data processing events. But they're not just data processing events. They could be insider type of events that could occur, inappropriate access to information. So when I look at this particular diagram here, and welcome, John, we're looking at the NIST framework. You can see that there is this interplay between cybersecurity risks and privacy risks. And I think the important thing here is to understand that cybersecurity risks and privacy risks are not the same. And keeping your data safe from cyber risk doesn't keep it safe from privacy risk. So you want to mitigate the loss of data due to some kind of a privacy risk, because that's where data breach really comes in. And data breach is really where the money organizations lose, becomes very prevalent. So if, you know, the relationship between privacy risk and organizational risk is problems arise from data processing, individual experiences a direct impact, the direct impact, you know, because of a data breach of some sort. It could be an economic loss, to discrimination and embarrassment. But, you know, they identify that loss does not have to be just a financial loss. And if you think about some of the court cases we've talked about, harm could be reputational harm, harm could be employment harm, harm could actually be safety. So understanding that, you know, a problem arises, an individual experiences some type of harm, and the result to the organization is you know, provide a public shame, shall we say. B, could be fees from the FTC or one of the other organizations that we've talked about in the past, depending upon the type of data. And C's, in some places, like in California, the individual can sue. So understanding that this is a really important relationship between cyber and privacy, I think, is important. And one of the things that I think you're going to see more and more companies, and I participated in something with the IAPP most recently, a roundtable discussion of which companies were talking about wanting to begin privacy risk assessments, but not knowing where to start. You know, why would you want to do that? And the reason it became complicated is because you really need to know your data to do a privacy risk assessment. Because remember, it's really about the data. Some of it's PII, right? Some of it is highly sensitive information. And if you do not know your data in your organization, you don't know how to protect it. So one of the things is in one of my previous lives, I was what you call not a database administrator, but a data administrator. I must have known in a previous life I would get into this data protection. But it was where you actually had to do data modeling. So how many people have in database, when you're creating a database, you do data modeling, right? Has anybody know, you look at relationships, like a customer can have one unique identifier, but a customer could have multiple addresses. So you have this, you identify this relationship between data and between the labels of it. And understanding that if you don't know where your data is and you don't know what your data is, how can you protect it? And it doesn't become a problem until you have a data breach. And once you have a data breach, how do you know where that data is that had a problem? That's the first thing. Because if it's a healthcare data breach and everybody, they want to know, well, where all do you store customer address? And you don't know all the different places you store your customer's address. Well, that means that you don't know your data very well. You don't know your systems. And the privacy risk assessment really requires you to identify the risks associated with each pieces of data and to know where they're being stored. And I think that's it's actually mind-blowing to organizations if they start to think about it, like when they have hundreds of files. And then it turns out that people are taking files and they download their files onto their workstation because they want to then use Excel or something to manipulate the files more. Well, now all of a sudden the data has gone from a central place to work with now to individual workstations. And that's even more dangerous because the data is so disparate and it's not being protected in a uniform manner. So privacy risk is an important component when you want to think about ways to safeguard it. So companies are looking for people to do these privacy risk assessments. They're looking for people who are able to go through the data and to look at it. So one of the things, and I'm not going to go through this entire thing, so don't panic. But one of the things that they did do is they put together the privacy framework basics. And what they said is that you want to be able to, and they put this core together and they said, you know, protect, communicate, control, govern, and identify. And what they said is these core functions, they work together to help understand, you know, what has happened with the data. They're the foundational privacy activities at the highest level. You know, first you have to identify what are your data. Then you have to figure out how you're governing them. You know, who's responsible for the different levels of protection. And then you have to think about what are the type of controls you put on that data. And then you have to think about how do you communicate access. And then thirdly, how do you protect it? And this is a fairly elaborate system. So if I'm going to move up, so, you know, we look at cybersecurity risk, we look at, you know, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. We should know this. This is something you learned when you studied cyber, right? You have to identify, you got to protect it, you got to detect it if there's a problem, you got to respond to it and recover. That's the cybersecurity risks. In the cybersecurity privacy events, you got to protect it, you got to detect it, you got to respond and recover. So they both believe in that. But in the privacy world now, you have to identify it. So we all agree it's identify, but then we have to figure out who's responsible. We have to figure out how we're going to put some kind of controls on it. And then who do we have to communicate the risk to? So you can see cybersecurity doesn't care about who to communicate the risk to, but the privacy people all of a sudden need to worry about where the risks have to be communicated. Communicate to collectively address privacy and cybersecurity risks. So looking at the framework, you know, you can see that it's fairly complicated. So I would really recommend, you know, taking a few minutes to understand this document here. Like I say, I'm not going to make you go through it unless somebody does a paper on it, and that's what they're going to talk about. But it is very important to understand the differences between privacy and cybersecurity, and to understand that privacy allows you to be more in a PR role as well in terms of communicating the different problems that might come up. Now, one other thing I want to talk about in relations to this is that there is a tool for, it's called the, I think this is it. Let's see. Roadmap, I don't think so. Privacy risk. So the privacy risk, oh, look, they even have like this de-identifying and re-identification. What are some, do you know, I'm going to kind of go off script here, but do you know what some ways are to obscure information? If you want, so in cyber, what are some ways that we can protect our information? When you're storing your information or you're sending your information, what do we do?
You can encrypt it.
We can encrypt it, exactly. Okay. And so there's different ways to encrypt it, right? We can use, remember there's a model where it can be just a simple one key, right? I don't want to bug you about cyber, but there could be one key to uncode, one key to decode. Okay. That's called symmetrical, right? Well, we could have two keys, right? So the public and private key method, That's definitely more safe, right? That's a, that's called asymmetrical. A lot of uses within that space that, you know, we use. There is something called pretty good privacy. I don't know if you've heard that, PGP. That's actually what is Gmail uses. It means it's not quite where you have to have a private and public key, but it does have this idea that it sends everything across, and as it's sending it across, everything is always, whether it's at rest or whether it is in transit or in storage, it is encrypted, and that you do have a key that is associated with you, but it's not quite to the level of asymmetric. And then we have, it could be have something like you could have a certification, what is that called? A digital signature. And a digital signature, what do you know what happens with a digital signature? You have to be able to have the right key to be able to unlock something, to be able to sign it. So that's a way to make sure documents are authentic. But there's also something called that you may not have known. I mean, I'm not going to go through all the cybersecurity things. That wasn't my intent, nor am I trying to impress you that I do know some cybersecurity stuff. But but one of the new things that's coming out is something called differential privacy. And the idea is that within differential privacy, it's kind of like using noise. So do you know what I mean when I talk about noise? If not, that's fine. Let's see, who do I have here? So noise is when you store data. And when you store the data, you know, data is nothing more than what is data really? When the format of data is, I know you hate these guessing games. Try to guess what I'm thinking. What am I thinking? It's a way to try to increase engagement. I don't think it works usually. Guess what I'm thinking. But it probably works for me to say that it doesn't work. Anyhow, when you store data, data is really only in the format of zeros and ones, right? On and off electrical impulses. That's what data is really when we think about it. So if we have a major power outage, boy, we're in big trouble. But in that storage of data, what happens is that you can have a formula where every 15 bytes, you put something that is nonsense in. So you add a D to every third letter, you put a D, whatever a D is, okay, in that storage. So when somebody would be reading it, they would come across this stream of data, and even if they got the key, they would get the key, but the key wouldn't help them, because even decoding it, they would have some kind of what we call noise in the middle of whatever it is that this stream of data, and they wouldn't be able to decode it. And one of the more popular new trends in the industry is to look at this differential privacy method to be able to take sensitive data maybe being, healthcare data, biometric data, and inject this noise into the data stream so that when it's stored, it is got like this nonsense in the middle of it, that only those people who would then be able to be authorized to read it would have the secret sauce to be able to get at the data. So that sounds like a great idea, right? Because then, it really protects the data. And frankly, if you have a data breach and you use some kind of method like this, you're golden. You're not going to be charged. The data is not readable to anybody, so you're not going to have to have any fees for a data breach. You're going to tell your customers, hey, we have stored the data in such a way that it's not readable, and you might not even have to tell them at all. most likely you will, because it'll just come up anyhow. But the problem with doing any kind of differential privacy is that it takes more time to decode. So the encoding time takes a little bit more, and so does the decoding. And so that is what is really keeping that differential privacy from, blasting off. But I want you to be aware of it, because if you end up going into this field, you need to know what are the latest techniques that people are using to be able to secure data. And if you have really, really secret data, then you should consider this differential privacy as one of the things. So if you're going for a top secret agency, I can assure you they're using differential privacy. So, okay, so let me show you one more thing about NIST, because I wouldn't want you not to know this. There is this thing called inventory and mapping, and I think I told you that that was one of the things that I worked on. I don't know if they have an example. I hate it when I can't find what I want. We'll look at this one. It might be here. But what it is if I can explain it without it actually having the example, is it's actually a spreadsheet. And in the spreadsheet, you have every single piece of data that is within your organization. And you identify where that data is stored on every single file. So, in the mapping part here, we have, and this looks like this might be it. That could be lucky for me. We first identify all, data processing systems. So the first thing is you identify all of your data processing systems. And I know that sounds silly, but if you were to ask Marymount University to identify all their systems, I know for sure, because I worked on a special project with them when I was installing Workday. They don't even know all the systems, because not all systems are bought by IT. So departments buy their own systems. So all of a sudden you've got systems that are bought by IT, and then you have systems that are bought by departments. And then individuals might bring in some different systems where data is stored. So understanding all of the data processing systems and then within each of those, what are all the data that are collected in each system? So you can imagine this big map here of, okay, well, let's look at Workday, for example. So let's say just Workday HR system. So one of the systems would be Workday HR system, and then within a Workday HR system, you would have the data of, employee name, employee address, employee's sex, all of the demographics, the salary, all of those things. And then you go to the next system, and Workday benefits. Well, that would have, employee name, all of those again, and it's probably integrated. But then you might go to the recruiting system, and the recruiting system might be a different system. So now you have the same employee who is, you go through a process, you hire, you recruit. Okay, the person is recruited, he's in your system. And then when the person becomes an employee, he now is also in the Workday system. So now all of a sudden you've got Eric in two systems. You've got him in the recruiting system, and then you have him as an employee system, and you've got the date, you've got the addresses and all of the information about Eric in both systems. So if there is, a data breach, understanding where all the information about Eric is stored is very important. Okay, so this particular document here, this spreadsheet that I'm showing you, is a really great tool to help you know what kind of data you have, and what kind of actions can be taken on the data. So can you update the data? So if it's an employee number, can you update an employee number? The answer is probably no. Can you update a person's name? Well, yes, you could update a person's name, but you probably want to have some procedures around updating a person's name, right? Yeah. Can you update a person's age? Well, if they made a mistake, you want to be able to update their age. But that's a policy problem. Can you update somebody's sex? Well, that's another, policy issue that you have to make. Maybe, how do you handle that? All of a sudden it's that there's all these questions like, how do you handle sex? Should you also then have a field called gender? Can you update, if you update gender, do you update sex? So you can see that if you are in this data inventory process, it can become very complex. And then the question is, who should update these things? And that is another very important thing. And the data processing is mapped, illustrating the data actions, the elements, the systems, and also the roles. What kind of people can access that data? So that's where all of a sudden the cybersecurity people and the privacy people really come into play, because as we know, one of the key ways for cyber to control access for cyber is you control access, who can get at it. Well, the privacy people are making that same decision, so they've got to make it together. So this is a very important, framework here that I highly recommend that you take some time and you learn. And I don't know if any of you will ever go into this area of privacy, but I would be very remiss if I didn't, talk about it at any great detail. So once again, it's the NIST government privacy framework. I don't know why it's two privacy frameworks, but it is. And hopefully you will, like I say, if you get into this, it's really an important document for you to know it's out there. I don't know. Do you want to spend more time on this on another class? Maybe I should stop sharing for a minute. Do you want to spend more time on the NIST privacy, or is this enough for now? And if you want more, you'll do it yourself. Shall I assume by no one jumping up and down and saying, I can't wait to learn more about the NIST privacy framework, that if you want it, you know where it is? Should that be my assumption? All right. Should that be my assumption, John? No, you want to learn more about the NIST privacy framework? You do? Okay, that's a good thing to know.
I mean, if anybody's going into any sort of federal government work at all,
You need
NIST
to know.
is the golden ticket there.
Yep.
Like they love NIST. They will put NIST over everything. So if you can list NIST as your like in your resume, you can say like you did XYZ with NIST, then they will love you that much more and potentially pay you that much more because you are a NIST person.
Yeah. Well, I can definitely put some more time into this to go through it, maybe come up with maybe provide an example of an inventory sheet. And I think that would be very useful to see how somebody had prepared it, and also to look at a risk privacy assessment. So maybe I can bring a tool to show a risk privacy assessment, and you can then, talk about it and see how that is actually conducted to bring it to your organization. So let me write those two things down, and I can look for that. I can bring those in. And the NIST, okay, good. All right. All right, so let's talk. So everybody okay to move to a new topic? Are you guys, you're doing okay? Haven't been too boring yet. You'll raise, Sergio, I'm expecting you to raise the flag when it gets too bad. Say it's too bad. Okay. All right, Kiddis, you're still there, right?
Yes, Professor.
Yes. Okay, I haven't put you to sleep yet. All right, so let me bring up the other stuff. Okay. Maybe I will. maybe not. All right, you guys go this way. Oh, stop it. Okay. All right. All right, I don't know why it's doing this, but it is. Just trying to minimize you guys. Maybe. All right, you cannot minimize. Okay, when you're recording these meetings. Oh, how crazy is that? All right, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna share my screen. I'll just share my screen. It allows me to do more when I share. Okay, let me go to our. Okay, so let's talk about telemarketing. Now, this is very interesting, actually. I think you'll like this. So how many people are sick of getting phone calls that are spam calls, and you wonder, why am I getting that? I know I am. All right, here we go. Should be bringing it up. It's verifying my PowerPoint only for me to. Come on. Okay. All right. All righty. All right. So my gosh, this is hard to read. Sorry about this. All right. We're going to just go. So really, okay, telecommunications and marketing. All right. So telemarketing, it's been around for a very long time. And it's the Federal Trade Commission is the agency that is responsible for actually policing it, along with the Federal Communications, but it really falls into the Federal Trade Commission. And if you recall, there was this whole idea in the 1990s, the do not call list, where they put restrictions on advertisers, and they prohibited it, and you could go on a list to stop it. Now, on the do not call list, you cannot go on a do not call for political stuff. So be ready for just tons of telecommunication on political stuff that won't stop. So in 1995, there was something called the telemarketing sales rule. And it was implemented in response to families complaining about like deceptive marketing and unwanted marketing calls. And it defines telemarketing as a plan, program, or campaign which is conducted to induce the purchase of goods or services, or a charitable contribution by use of one or more telephones, which involves more than one interstate telephone call. So charitable organizations can within the state call, but if it's going across borders, then it's a problem. So for example, you might get a phone call from, if you live in Virginia, from the Virginia State Police trying to get you to give money for fallen officers, and they can call because they are calling only in Virginia. But if you live in Virginia and you get a telephone marketing call from the Maryland State Police asking for money, that is a violation of the rule. So within that telemarketing sales rule, this is a terrible slide. There are, I don't know when I made these, but they're terrible. Anyhow, we have the do not call registry, but for some reason, I'm not sure it's working the same way with cell phones. I've put myself on it 1,000 times and yet I still get it. But there are some rules that came out of this. Like, for example, if you are a person who is a realtor and you're trying to get new properties or new people, properties or new clients, buyers and sellers, you can only call between the hours of 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. So they put some limitations. So you have to follow those limitations. And you have to also, it prohibits sellers from calling a consumer who asked not to be called again. It's very specific ideas. And they have to disclose prior to the sales, any kind of sale must disclose the purchase of the call, nature of goods or services that you're calling about. The caller ID is supposed to be accurate, but for me, it often comes across unknown, so I think that's a joke. Live sales representatives must connect within 2 seconds. I bet you didn't know that. So if you pick up a call and it looks like it was a good call, but it's not, if they don't answer within 2 seconds, that's what they call abandonment. And there's something called abandonment safe harbor, protects from fines for inadvertent calls as long as the measure to avoid the abandonment takes place. So if you can't sue somebody for keeping you on the line for more than 2 seconds, there's this safe harbor law that kind of protects these people. Okay. Misrepresentation, that's also covered under the telemarketing sales rule, where people misrepresent who they are when they call you. Any kind of robocalls or robotext need prior written consent, and especially if it's anything with healthcare. So this week, I get an email from Dr. Murphy, and it says, "Can you kindly give me your email?" And so I have to confess. So I was on my phone, I was in a hurry, and I saw it was Murphy, and she and I are friends, and I thought, did she lose my cell phone number? Okay. So I stupidly sent her my cell phone number. And I later, because it came across as Diane Murphy in the label of the email, it came across as signed by her. It had a little bit of her wit in it, the way she's, what I would expect her to say. And so I was in a hurry, so I thought, maybe she needs it for something important, like she and I are working on a project together. So I thought, maybe she needs it for this project. I give it to her, only to find out that, lo and behold, it was a phishing email, of which later that day, I received a text saying, "Hi, can you confirm that this is your email, Diane?" So I immediately just deleted it and reported it as spam. But I started to think about my cell phone number as private information. And now I thought, I just now gave my cell phone. But I'm telling you, all of this information is everywhere. So I'm telling you this so you do it. So once again, even though your cell phone, it's so easy not to look at who the sender is, other than, the description that comes across on your Outlook or Gmail or whatever you use, you got to look at that email. Because when I went back and looked at the email, sure enough, the email was not dmurphy@marymount.edu. Instead, it was something else. So shamefully, I teach cybersecurity and I didn't even follow my own rules. So hopefully I'm not going to get hacked, but we'll see. So, okay. So it's talking about state telemarketing legislation. Each state can create some legal requirements of its own. So if you get into telemarketing and ever, you need to know, what are the laws within your state. I think I'll make it like this. It's better. Okay. Now you can read it a little better. Okay. So several state cases, the FCC actions on robocalls. They said that recent court cases, robocalls, telemarketing, the FCC has several new rules in the last few years about companies who block calls that are likely to be fraudulent because they come from certain phone numbers, saying that that's okay. And in March 2020, the Supreme Court ruled on a case involving Dish, which in part said that existing business relationships mean that, so you can call, this is about existing business relationships. So if I'm a realtor, let's pretend I'm a realtor. If I'm a realtor and I sold a piece of property to somebody and I did it within 18 months, that's considered to be an existing business relationship. And so I have the right to be able to go and market to them other things if I so choose, because now the courts are saying that I have an existing business relationship. Now, if I want to go and contact them 2 years later about something, it has expanded beyond that 18-month period. And I have to follow those rules of between 8 and 9 p.m. And if they say they don't want to be called, if they're on a do not call registry, I have to adhere to that. But as long as there was a business relationship, I don't have to follow the rules of the do not call at all. And in 2020, this was a pretty good one. The Supreme Court ruled that a 2015 law allowing federal debt collectors to make robocalls violates your constitutional rights. So if you're getting robocalls from debt collectors, that is illegal, and you can maybe get out of your debt by suing them. Okay. So like I was talking before, the do not call registry is supposed to be for wireless as well. And telemarketers must access the registry up to 31 days, every 31 days to make sure that they have the most current list. So if you update it, if you put yourself on the do not call registry in the middle of the month and you get a call at the end of the month, the caller might say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't update ours. We have," I don't know, they might say that they just updated it and it wasn't on there. Okay, so just know every 31 days, they have to update it. So if you become a telemarketer, every 31 days, you got to update your call list to make sure you're not calling people. There's over 220 million participants. But the thing is, you as a participant must also update that do not call registry. You don't stay on that thing forever. And I think that it's like every year you have to go and re-register your devices. So here are some exceptions to the do not call. There are nonprofits calling on their own behalf. So if your local church is calling on its own behalf, they would be an example. I frequently get calls from Goodwill asking if I want to do a pickup. Existing business relationships, which I just talked about. Consent by the consumer. If somebody calls you and they say, "Can we call you again?" and you say yes, well then, even if you put yourself on the do not call registry, that allows them to override the do not call registry and they can call you again. All right. All right. So when we talk about existing business relationship, I think I told you there's two types. There's customers purchased, rented, or leased within 18 months. And prospects that you have been maybe having a conversation with, and you can within the last 3 months. So that, I think that's an important thing to understand. So you don't have to have been a customer, but you could be a prospect if the prospect says it's okay. And the idea is that consent by the consumer must be clear and conspicuous, writing and include the name and signature or the electronic. So if you ever notice, you might get a call and it'll start out by saying, this call is you're on a recorded line. And so if you're asked, can we call you back? And this is specifically within the area of financial instruments. Any kind of bank, they're always asking you, you're telling you you're on a recorded line. And then if they're trying to sell you something, can we call you back? And if you say yes, that's considered to be consent. So that's good enough. So I remember when sweepstake entry forms were were like signing up for the Reader's Digest. I don't even know if they have that anymore. Sweepstakes was a way to get people would sign up for the Reader's Digest. They'd have to give a lot of information to send in that ridiculous form with stickers everywhere. My father used to fill them out meticulously, but I never realized really what he was doing was he was giving all of his information, because it would ask for his birth date, and it would ask, different things like, where were you born? Stuff that had nothing to do with the sweepstake, but because people were hopeful about winning the sweepstake, they would give this information away. The FTC came along and said, no, it's deceptive way to get people's information. So they said you couldn't do it. All right. Let's see. Do not call. So there is a safe harbor for telemarketers. So if you become a telemarketer, it protects them. It protects the telemarketers as long as they have written procedures for the people that are doing the telemarketing. They train their staff on the laws and how to approach things. They document, when people say that they don't want to be called anymore, and they monitor and enforce. So really they're saying you got to have procedures and you got to have some kind of a program to monitor it. Okay. And some states that have telemarketing laws, like the Louisiana Public Service Commission do not call order has different timeframes for making calls, limits business relationships to 6 months, and carries its own penalties for violators. So this must be the Public Service Commission must be who is responsible for monitoring it in Louisiana. Some other states require telemarketers to obtain a license, create their own do not call list, identify themselves at the beginning of the call, which I think Virginia does, terminate the call without rebuttal if the recipient of the call requested. So if you just say, I don't want to do this, instead of just keep babbling on, they say, okay, call within limited hours, and create a written contract for certain transactions. Meaning that if you are going to be selling something through a telemarketing, it has to have some kind of a written contract, not just give me your credit card and I'm going to send it to you. Okay. Okay. So the Telephone Consumer Protection Act of 1991 is a little different, and it was the Junk Fax Protection Act. It was regulating commercial fax marketing. For you guys and gals, this means nothing to you, but there was a time when fax machine numbers must have been sold, and you would get tons of advertisement on your fax machine. Faxes would start being printed for restaurants, for places to eat, for hotels, for a lot of different things, suppliers of services. In my office, I would get so many, sometimes it'd be 10, 15 of these marketing faxes that would come in. So the Junk Fax Protection Act of 2005 determines that consent can be inferred, and it determines that consent can be inferred from an existing business relationship, as with the DNC. So they're just saying, hey, just like the calls, we need these faxes to follow the same rules as the calls. And so there were violations, up to $500 per fax if you sent a fax that you weren't supposed to send. And actually it was riskier because the fax would actually be an actual artifact that you could then, take to court and say, hey, they keep sending me this stuff. Okay. And the Junk Fax Protection Act said the sender must offer an opt-out to the recipient. So back in 2005, we were already seeing that users needed to have that option to be able to opt out. Okay. And these are just some more laws about the the state fax marketing laws, you know, Oklahoma, Utah, Nebraska prohibit junk faxes without receiving the express consent. Florida, you know, Florida prohibits interstate faxes of any real property, goods, or services. But like I say, this is no longer what I would consider to be a very important, you know, important type of communication. It doesn't seem that faxes are used like they used to be in today's day and age. That was replaced with emails, I would say. Emails replaced faxes. Now, this next one is an important one, and it's called the CAN-SPAM, and we talked about this once before, and it is the one about unsolicited pornography, and it's the controlling, so it stands as if the name is kind of stupid, but it's controlling the assault of non-solicited. So the C is controlling, the A is assault, the N is for non, the S is for solicited, the P is for pornography, the A is for and, I guess, and the M is for marketing. Okay, so the idea was back in the days, the early days of the internet, one of the biggest, and it still is actually, but we don't see it as much. The biggest use of the internet was pornography, believe it or not. So the legislators came up and said, well, we have to change this because we can't have this. So they created this CAN-SPAM Act, and it sets the rules for commercial emails, establishing required for commercial messages, giving recipients the right to have you stop emailing them, and spell out tough penalties. So if you have emails you're getting and you don't want them anymore, you should be able to go to an opt-out, look for it, or an unsubscribe, and you should be able to unsubscribe from an email that you are no longer interested in getting. It prohibits false or misleading headers, subject lines, and it requires clear and conspicuous functioning return emails, clear notice of the act to opt out, clear identification of the message, valid physical warning for labels of sexually oriented content. So that was a really important component. It's these legitimate organizations that email, identify the sender, and the ability to unsubscribe. The CAN-SPAM Act. These three things. That's what you need to remember about that. Okay. And the other thing that it was really known for was, besides regulating the commercial email, was they wanted to put it also towards mobile commercial messages. So any kind of message that you would receive, if you don't want it, your SMS text, if you don't want it, there should be a opt-out. Now, I don't know about you folks, but I often do not see when I receive a text and it is from somebody I don't want. All I can do is delete and report as junk. I do not see oftentimes where I can opt out within a text. So I don't know how that is not being a bigger issue, but that is my experience. Anybody else?
The bigger ones will usually send you a text that's at the top of the chain above whatever giant paragraph they've written up under it to push it upwards, so it's not really on your screen. And it'll say like reply stop in all capital letters to like stop receiving messages. But then they write like a giant paragraph or like space they're writing so that it pushes that off the screen when you open.
Yes. Yep, I have. If I scroll down long enough in you are correct. So, I mean, this is some useful stuff that you should be thinking about. I hope that you're finding this to be somewhat useful, because if you go into telemarketing, you need to understand the laws involved in telemarketing. If you don't want telemarketing, you need to understand what you can do to resolve it. I think that the government is trying to do the right thing, but I think that they just, the amount of technology that's coming out is just more than they can do. Okay, all right. I want to see you, but I want to see my screen. So, all right, that might be the best. All right, maybe I'll move you guys over here. All right, moving along. Okay. So this, as we continue, the CAN-SPAN Act said, okay, wireless. So it's similar to the do not list of wireless domains that marketers can use when emailing messages. It has to be periodically updated, and senders are responsible for obtaining the list of who you can send to. So along with your phone, if you still have a plug-in phone, you can, the wireless is still this, wireless also can get the be on the do not call registry. It's called the Wireless Domain Registry. So that, maybe that's the trick, is you put your phone, you make sure you put your phone on the Wireless Domain Registry as opposed to the do not call registry. And the Wireless Domain Registry is what, you know, keeps you from getting all these spam calls. All righty. All right. Enforcement. So a couple last things about the CAN-SPAN enforcement. There's a 10-day grace period following a revocation of commercial emails. So if you tell somebody, I don't want to get any more emails, and then you get one the next day, there's 10 days for them to get you off their system. But if after that, there are some penalties up to $40,000 per violation. So maybe you should keep track of that, and that might be a way to pay your tuition next time. This is where you can find out about the civil penalties. Internet service providers can sue for relief and monetary damages up to 250 violations. And the court can increase. So understand that that even the internet providers can sue if they're starting to receive things that they shouldn't receive. I don't know how that would be. All right. So then there was this other act. So CAN-SPAN is that do not call list. The Telecommunications Act, it's called the Cable Communications Policy Act of 1984. And the important thing about it is, says only necessary PI is needed to provide service or detect unauthorized reception. So at the time of an initial agreement, when you agree to any kind of cable, you have to, the cable company is only supposed to collect what it is that absolutely necessary. And they are not supposed to give it out to other people. Disclosure, they can only disclose it if it's necessary to provide the service. If the court orders, they have to give this out. But they also have to give the opportunity to opt out if you don't want any of that information ever to be displayed. So this actually got updated in it. And what they said is in 1996, customer information provided to obtain carriers restricts access and using and disclosing customers' personal information. So the problem is that all these, once you sign up with these telecommunications, they were selling all of your information. So they said, okay, you can't be selling the information we have unless well, you can sell it as long as somebody hasn't opted out, because that's all about opting out here in the US. So that was really the important thing. And these 1996 law says it restricts accessing, using, and disclosing customer network information. So that's all the stuff that you have on your network. okay, all of your internet transmissions, all of that stuff. Okay, but then there was this section 222 of the Telecommunications Act. And the reason this is important is because this particular act said telecommunication carriers and voice over providers, broadband services are subject to this 222 Act, specifically the use and disclosure allowed with customer approval for marketing offers, billings. You have to have customer approval. Use and disclosure allowed with customer approval. And that goes for marketing offers, billings, collections, fraud protection, customer and emergency services. So customer has to approve whether or not they want their information to be disclosed. And it would be, they have to decide whether they want it for digital advertising. They have to decide whether they want it for getting information about subscriptions, billings, call logs. The thing with this is that the carriers must notify you if there's a security breach, and it requires customers to provide a password in compliance to be able to even get at this log of information. But this one, I think, is the one that is probably the section 230. And section 230 is the Communications Decency Act. And this is the rule that says, hey, Microsoft, hey, Twitter, you are responsible for checking to make sure that content is going to be not indecent or obscene. So it attempts to regulate indecency and obscenity in cyberspace. But it has been expanded that it should be any kind of terrorist act, anything that looks like it would be objectionable. The courts have said that section 230 requires social media companies to be able to check content before publishing it. So it says, provides that no publisher or use of interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another person. Okay. Unless, wait, I'm totally wrong. What it says is just the opposite of what I said. So if we could wind back, let's start this again. Section 230 is what gives, it allows Twitter, it allows Facebook, it allows all of them to publish things, because it says that publishers, no publisher or user of interactive computer services shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of information provided by another content user. So it's saying, hey, when you put something on Facebook, Facebook isn't responsible for what you put on. You know, that is not their responsibility. And initially, Facebook said, yeah, we don't want to be in the business of censoring the content of our users. We want our users to be able to say whatever they want to say. But then when Facebook got accused of the problems that came out about hate speech, the Charlottesville riots that happened with the white supremacy group, which a lot of the people started with Facebook and then moved on to other venues like Parler and a few others. They said, well, okay, if you want us to do that, then we need some rules from you, the government, to know what it is that we should be looking for to determine whether or not we should start censoring people's posts. And so the government came back and said, well, you should be looking at what they call this Good Samaritan protection. Good Samaritan protection from civil liability for websites that remove offensive third-party content. So you should be being a good citizen, a good Samaritan, and you should know that if something that gets posted isn't being, quote, a good Samaritan, well, then you do not have to, then you should remove it if it's not a good Samaritan type of thing. And the reason this 230 was initially put on, because they wanted they didn't want to put the limit on the social media companies. And you could think about it from a social media perspective. This rule protects you, you know? So Facebook says it's impossible for us to look at everything. We have to use AI. We really always can't tell the context of what's being out there. We do our best. The big ones that they look for now are suicide or things that might encourage suicide, gun violence, things that might encourage gun violence, terrorism, things that might encourage terrorism. So they are doing it, but for the most part, Section 230 is what creates an immunity for internet companies for the content published on their site. So that is an important thing. And what it did is it removed the incentive for internet companies to remove defamatory or harassing content because they say that's free speech. Well, it might be free speech. I mean, what do you people think? Do you think that Facebook, social media companies should remove content? Anybody have any ideas? Okay, so how about this? Scenario one, Facebook, a user posts something that says, people that are from Korea are anti-Semitic. I'm making stuff up, by the way, so should that be something that Facebook should censor? It's free speech, right? No one has an opinion? What if you worked for Facebook? Would you say that would be something that should be censored?
I mean, it really depends on what your platform is made to do. Like if you're making it as, you know, a safe space within this topic, like a lot of like Facebook groups that I'm in, they have, you know, their admins and moderators that go through and, you know, if something's wrong, you don't report it to Facebook, you report it to the moderator, and the moderator will take down the offensive or bad comment.
Okay, so
But,
that requires a moderator to really do their job, I guess.
yeah, but a lot of like the widespread of Facebook, like is, you know, a lot of the people that post frequently on there are just ding dong screaming into the void.
Yeah.
And if you want to scream into the void and leave a paper trail for yourself, you scream into the void and leave a paper trail, because one day it's going to come back to bite you in the butt.
Yeah. I mean, what if somebody posts something that said, like, let's make it, Russians should all be killed because of the Ukrainian war. I mean, is that something that, you know, I mean, next time you see a Russian killer, I mean, I don't know, where do you draw the line? If it's gonna make somebody do something, do you something that's going to encourage some kind of bad action? Is that where you draw the line and you say no? What about something personal? What if somebody wants to put on Facebook, and I'm just picking on Facebook, it could be any of the social medias, Dr. Conrad is a prostitute. I am not, and nor would anyone want to go to me, but I would have very few clients. I'm not a young spring chick. So, but I mean, I'm just making stuff up. I'm trying to get some kind of reaction out of you. Come on. So, but somebody could say that, right? I would find that to be personally defamatory. I could say to Facebook or Instagram, hey, that is not my profession. That is not what I do. It's, you know, and putting that out there now, I've just lost my job at the university because they don't want to hire prostitutes to be their professors. So, there's a responsibility. I'm trying to get this idea across, you know, that there is this huge responsibility of, if you're going to be one of these internet, you know, sources of, you know, social media, that this 230 protects you. But then there's this piece here that says, you know, Good Samaritan protection from civil liability. So maybe they should have realized that you can't go putting that. Somebody should have seen this and said, oh no. I mean, what if you, like, there are really personal things that people could put out there. Like a woman who has an abortion, she doesn't want to advertise that she had an abortion. I can assure you she doesn't want to do that. Now, that doesn't mean I had an abortion either, you know, but the point is, you know, if somebody puts stuff out there, it can be very derogatory, and it could put somebody in danger. So somebody says, I had an abortion. Well, the next thing I know, I have a lot of people who are really against abortion who are coming and swarming my house, you know, right? They want to lynch, they want to, you know, do something terrible to me. So understanding that this section 230 is very controversial, and it comes up every year in Congress, because the question is, do they get rid of it? Do they say, hey, social media companies, you need to be more responsible, and not just kind of, is it a Good Samaritan feel good kind of test, and not hold anybody to it. And every year, it's a matter of free speech. Do we want to then have what China has? Like, for example, when we already talked about this, but TikTok in China is really different from TikTok here, right? TikTok in here is like anything goes. TikTok in China is, how do I become a model Chinese citizen? You know, how can I better learn to be a citizen of the state? That clearly is not TikTok here. So this is an important thing. So if you don't remember too much from our lecture today, and even though I told you the wrong thing in the beginning, now as I'm talking about it more, I remember all the issues. I told you to be kind.
Sorry, Professor.
Yes.
So like I was kind of like reading some article like on Google like previously,
Yes.
and then on such type of contents on social media, like they have typically some guidelines, and like to remove the content, it's like very time taking. They have to collect the URL, they have to contact the right person to restrict the access, and then even if like, you know, they do have the information, they cannot clear it out like directly. So people have to submit like separate notice, and then they have to ask the website owner if it's like on a different website, and then ask them to remove. So I believe like that would be also another, you know, issue.
Yeah, so you can see how tedious it is, right?
Right, yeah.
And it requires a whole staff of people to be able to review.
Yeah, and it's gonna automatically appears in multiple products and like search engines. So even if they
Exactly.
it from one, they will not be able to remove it from other services.
Yeah, so that's another reason that the social media companies say, hey, we're just offering a platform. We are not a regulator. But different groups will say, hey, it's causing maybe racism, it's causing bigotry, it's causing hate. It was a lot easier when things were just on paper, I swear. But anyhow, this is an important rule, and you should keep it in mind, whether you're going to be in privacy or not. But this Communications Decency Act with the Section 230 is important in social media. Okay. Okay.
Real quick, I think another problem with that, it's along the same lines as there's like an unwritten law where it's like a Good Samaritan law. Like if you think like Good Samaritan arrest or Good Citizen arrest, it goes along with that, because if you do something and you try saying it's a Good Citizen arrest, you can still face charges for trying to do something of that nature, or nothing happens until something is reported.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little scary, right? You see a crime, and then maybe you're holding somebody, and while you're holding them, maybe they have a heart attack and die. And you're maybe preventing a crime from happening, and you're waiting for police backup. But in that process of being a Good Samaritan, a negative consequence occurs that you may have nothing to do with.
They have the same thing in medical, where they have a Good Samaritan rule, where if you have the training and you're working in the victim's best interest, then you're free to do what's within your training scope. But only some states will protect you with the Good Samaritan, and some, I believe it's Vermont, requires you to act if you have the training. Whereas other states will tell you that you absolutely cannot do anything unless you are on duty.
Yeah, I mean, it's this Good Samaritan rule is pretty tricky. So the Section 230, like we talked about, you can see that the Good Samaritan could backfire. So another one is this video protection privacy, and it addresses changes in video delivery that allows users to share their movie viewing information via social media. So this is already a bit dated, because Blockbuster, I don't even know if Blockbuster doesn't even exist anymore. But there is still Redbox. I think I saw a Redbox the other day. But this would apply to Redbox, and or the Spotify or NetShare option is a reflection of the amendment. But what it does is it says that you can prohibits videotape services from disclosing PI. So if you go and you rent, I'm really in the gutter today, I'm sorry. But let's say you go and you're a big renter of pornography movies, and you go to one of those stores and you buy a lot. I'm sorry, Jen. I don't know where I am, but you go and you buy a lot of these pornography movies, or you rent them, and then you sell the information of the people who rented it, maybe to other industries that might be involved in this, in that particular area of business. So what this video protection privacy says is, hey, you can't sell that information. Now, Netflix, think about Netflix and Amazon, and now there are so many services. Everybody's keeping track of whatever I'm watching these days. But that's how they come up with that recommended movies for you, because they're keeping track of them, and they're watching how long you watch them. Do you watch them to the whole movie? Did you stop them in the middle of it? I mean, they're not just watching whether you watched them or whether you selected it. They look to see, you know, the time it took you to finish it. They look to see if it was paused. They look to see if you watched it again. They obviously look to see if you're given it a recommendation. So the question becomes, can you disclose that information? And it says, you know, you can, exceptions for PI disclosure, disclose directly to the consumer, written consent. So they can disclose it if you give written consent. They can disclose it directly to you. They can disclose it to law enforcement. They can include only the names and addresses of customers. Well, so if law enforcement wanted to know everybody who watched, I don't know, some crazy movie, I don't know, they can give the names and addresses of every person who would have watched that movie. Now, in our country, that's not a big deal, right? But if you were in a very controlled country and you were watching movie about revolutionaries, right? That would maybe make you on the revolutionary list by the government. And that could put you in danger. So this particular act says that, you know, data should be destroyed no later than a year from the date the information is no longer needed. And it says, you know, that you really cannot be disclosing this PI information unless there's consent. But I'm not sure, they're disclosing it to you. So when you go that movies recommended for you, that's disclosure directly to you, the customer. Okay. But they're not disclosing it to supposedly other people.
But that might get tricky in a little bit with Florida banning all these things and banning, you know, they're going rampant on books and all
Yeah, I
that. And
think-
if they decide that they want to, you know, seek into videos, they can, you know, crack down on people watching illegal movies. And, you know, Texas with all of their healthcare demands, you know, if somebody watches a movie with an abortion in it, they could potentially, you know, crack down on them for even just having the knowledge.
Yeah, I see, we are spoiled, we who live in this country who've always had freedom. You know, the thing you have to remember with freedom is you don't know you have it until you don't have it anymore. You know, it's kind of like your body. When your eyes work, you don't think about seeing because you can see. But the moment one of your eyes doesn't work right, all of a sudden you realize how important your sight was. I mean, I know this sounds very trivial, but we have to think of freedom. This is not a political science class, it's a privacy class. But really, our privacy it should be considered one of our freedoms. And that's kind of what we're fighting for here, is to be able to still have private lives without government or any other organization, big business, give it away. You know, I'm writing a new paper, and my paper topic is why would we, and there's gonna be some research involved with this, but I have this idea in my head, so you guys can be my first unsolicited group of research candidates. How do you feel about giving your private information to the government? If it bothers you, how many people feel that they want to give their private information to the government? No. Okay, so Jenna says no. Okay, Anna, what do you say? You want to give your private information to the government? Anthony, do you have any feelings on that? So am I to assume that when it goes black, that people are gone? Dennis, are you there? Calling all named people. All right, well, we're not going to go after named people. Dennis, I know you're there.
Yes, doctor. I just turned off the video. Sorry.
You know, so, do you want the government collecting your private information? Does it bother you?
They probably already have it.
No, Sergio's like given up, okay? How about you,
Oh,
John?
they probably have it, and the Chinese government probably has it already. I mean, they all probably have it, and they're all playing games with it and being like, "Ha, I have it, you don't," and the other one's like, "Yeah, I have that too."
Why
Like,
did
you know, somebody bought a switch off Temu, so I have their data now too. You know, what do you think you're a big dog for?
So, okay, so this is my premise. Okay, right. Okay, maybe people already have it. But we don't like it that I'm going to make this assumption and you can maybe refute me. But I'm thinking we don't like it if we think the government has this information about us. We don't want the government to know that really we're anti, you know, that really, I don't know, if we're anti something, okay? But we give this, but we don't have a problem giving this information freely to big corporations when we go to Instagram and we put the day in the life, or you know, Snapchat, or you know, we're advertising. You know, when we're going to be in Korea, we have one of the people coming who's going to be just doing advertisements that we're in Korea. Well, all of a sudden now everybody knows we're in Korea. They know where we are. We're going to rob our house. I don't know. But the idea is we do this freely with big companies, but if government does it, we don't have the same anger. We don't have the same anger with big companies that we do with government. And but there's this idea that I don't think people realize what they're doing. Anyhow, I will do this research and I will let you know. What do you think, John? Do you?
I mean, there's the big issue of the big companies giving your information to the government
Right,
now too.
right. So
Like, I don't like it when the government is all up in my business, but also like, you know, I've heard like CVS like will share your data across state lines to Texas. So if you live in Texas and you go to another state to get the
day after
the
pill?
abortion pills, they will bring it back to your account and link it back to your account in Texas and tell on you.
Yeah,
So if you use your name anywhere in the US, they will add a CVS, they will bring it right back to Texas and still and tell the government, and the government will come after you.
Doesn't that break like HIPAA?
I would think so. That's a good point.
You'd think so. You'd also think that CVS would have a much better privacy policy because, you know, they have to deal with HIPAA in half of their stores everywhere, but
We went through
they
CVS.
don't really care.
Yeah, CVS didn't have that great of a privacy policy. Well,
It's the same thing as the FedNow program.
the Fed now, what is that one?
The FedNow bill passed, I think, the past July, and actually all your purchases goes through the Federal Reserve first, and then to the actual person you are paying. Like if you're doing a payment through Amazon, usually it would go from your account straight to Amazon. Now it goes to the Federal Reserve, then to Amazon. So the Federal Reserve actually knows everything you are purchasing, and it actually gives them access. So if we have a lockdown, they could honestly close your account for any reason. And then
I just can't keep up with all this stuff.
And then there's a new bill that just passed that dealing with cars, and every new model from I think 2022 or 2023 must have this certain chip mechanism in it that will allow police or anybody, really even hackers now, to shut off your car. The purpose of the bill was supposedly to help prevent, was it
Carjackings?
chasing, speed
Oh.
chasing, drunk drivers.
All right.
That was the original purpose of it, but it also, if we ever get in a lockdown or go martial law, they can shut off our cars, we can't leave. It's now a better vulnerability for hackers to hack into your car. But they recently just passed those too.
Well, with the hacking side of it, we've been able to hack cars since they got that proximity remote. I mean,
Yeah,
ever since
that just
they
makes
put
it
that
easier.
in, you can just boop and call it a day. I mean, I can start my car from my phone.
Oh,
Like,
Yeah.
you know, if I can start it from my phone, anybody can start it from their phone. But who wants to steal a 2018, you know, punch buggy?
well, I might because I got some kind of I had a terrible problem. This has nothing to do with privacy, but I figured we could use some levity. Don't worry, I won't be on too long, Amadi. I'll just tell you a little story. Okay, so all of a sudden one day I get in my car and my car smells. I'm like, oh my gosh, my car smells like ammonia. So I call the garage and I say, hey, you know, my car smells like ammonia. What do you think it could be? Could it be antifreeze leaking? No, antifreeze smells like maple syrup, they tell me. So, okay, fine. So I make an appointment. I bring my car in. It needed its 90,000 mile, like your punch buggy. It was old. It's old. Checkup. So they call me back and they say, we found, wait till we show you your passenger air filter. And they take out, when I come to see them, there is this mouse nest in my passenger air filter that is looking like the craziest hat you've ever seen. Okay, it is huge and it's, I don't know, full of, I'm not even sure what it was full of. And the mouse had eaten, you know, on your battery, you have those two caps on your battery. The mouse took the cap off the battery and ate one of the battery caps on my car. And it was interwoven into the mouse junkyard that it had created in my car. Well, okay, so they get that out and I'm thinking, oh, fabulous. We're done with this mouse string. And you know, so now I've sprayed my car with peppermint, just peppermint essence you're supposed to spray. They don't like this apparently, it's peppermint essence. But lo and behold, I think I have another mouse nest of something. Just
You have to put the sound sensor underneath your hood.
anyhow,
So
so I
have-
might be interested in your car because if this continues, I don't want my 2011 Toyota anymore.
I had rats in the engine bay of my car when I lived at a bad apartment complex. Like,
Honest to
but
God.
you get this little speaker thing that you get off Amazon, and you either wire it to your battery or you put battery, like, you know, like double A's in it, and you slap it up under the hood of your car, and then it will make a sound and strobe lights over your engine in that area, so they won't want to come in because it's at their frequency. And it's, you know, bright lights and they're all scurrying away from it all the time. So you don't
I will try both. I have the essence of peppermint and that. But okay, but you know, that's something that happened at my garage. So my house is I wouldn't want people if I was selling my house, I wouldn't want that information about this infestation of mice that's getting into my car that's being parked in front of my house to be something that people could look at to be able to say, oh my God, there must be a rat infestation at that house. I don't want to buy it. I know this is a crazy kind of story, but the fact is, all these things, if you put about every little thing of your life together in a little profile, we'd all look like horrible people. So, except for probably Jenna, and probably you too, Anna. Probably you too, Anthony. Probably you, Sergio, John, even Amadi. Only I would look like a real kook. But you know, it's just we want to think about our life, you know, and how we don't want people to know everything about their life. All right, I'm almost done. I promise you. Self-regulation of online advertising. Okay. It establishes responsible privacy practices via the Better Business Bureau for direct marketing. And it looks at this code of conduct and it says privacy should can be considered good business, avoid dark patterns. Who remembers what dark patterns are?
Isn't dark patterns where like you put the stuff on the website, but you make it make it unpleasing to the eye.
Or you can't find
I don't
how
look at
to,
it.
yeah, you can't find out how to unsubscribe because it's like sort of hidden dark patterns. How, you know, you're supposed to tell how your data is being used, which is our privacy notifications, all that kind of stuff. So they're really relying on the data ethics to establish on, they want this organization, which is called the National Advertising Initiative, the Digital Advertising Alliance, self-regulatory. So they're saying, hey, you are going to, we're going to let organizations, industries, different kind of groups regulate, trade organizations regulate themselves. So sometimes that works, sometimes not. Okay, the broadband rule, this is kind of the FCC broadband privacy rule. Broadband internet providers are classified as public utilities, and that means as a public utility that the consumer protection rules apply, meaning that they're not supposed to sell your information, but they are. But they say that they're only selling the transmission, not the content, just the transmission header information, which to me seems like that's selling information, but okay. California, some specific laws. California says you cannot track, says requires commercial websites to conspicuously post policies on how operators respond to do not track signals. You know, so that would mean that they can't have certain kind of cookies. Remember, we have session cookies, we have but web crawler cookies, though. We've got persistent cookies. So California says you're not supposed to, if you have them, you have to tell people you've got them. Nevada and Illinois say the right to know requires internet providers to tell consumers what PI is being gathered from them. And New Jersey, as the Personal Information and Privacy Act says, limits ability of retailers to collect PI scanned from customer cards, restricts use of any PI for sharing with third parties. So as you see, there's not a lot of laws that are actually protecting your consumer behaviors. And that I think is, you know, something to take note of. All right, so here we are, we're at the end. True or false, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act implement the telemarketing sales rule.
True.
True, that is what I would say as well. Oh, the answer is false. Telephone implements the consumer. Well, who did it? Was it implemented by somebody else? Let's check. Okay, we'll go all the way. Boom. It says the telephone. No. I thought it was actually. Telephone. Oh, maybe it's the telemarketing. Yep. It was the telemarketing, not the telephone. Oh, very tricky. We had the right ideas, so we'll pretend that we had it right. We had the right idea. It's not the, yeah, it's the telephone consumer, it's the telemarketing. Okay, fooled us on that. All right, number 2. Under the U.S. National Do Not Call Registry, how often must telemarketers update their call list?
Every 31 days.
That is correct. Boom. Okay, the next one. Which act requires giving a privacy notice to subscribers at the time of the initial agreement, including the nature of personal information collected, how it is used, retention period, as well as how to access an address? Which act requires a privacy notice to subscribers at the time of initial agreement? And
It's CAN-SPAM, right?
I think it's cable communications.
I think it's C. Let's see. Let's see. The answer is C, cable communications. Okay. See, aren't you glad that our tests are just, you take them 2 times and you can use everything you have on them? It would be a nightmare otherwise, wouldn't it? Okay, and the reason I don't push this, force you to do this is because A, I don't do it myself. So I never make people do more than what I do myself, and B, they change. Sergio is like, what kind of a teacher are you? I'm an honest teacher. Okay, which act restricts accessing, using, and disclosing consumer proprietary network information? Okay, network information. The CPNI. Remember, CPNI. Well, we know that the last thing we talked about did. Could it be CAN-SPAN? Let's check. Oh, it was B, the Telecommunications Act. That's CPNI. All right, now last one. What does MSCM stand for? I'm gonna go for, why am I the one answering this? I'm gonna go for number C. Anybody gonna go for a different one?
No, I think it's C.
All right. C. All right, the end. All right. So you made it to the end. Does anybody have, I don't think the person who was supposed to do the review today is here. Do we have a review from another time?
I sent you a review that covered, I'm not sure if it covered just this or if it covered this and more. I can take a look at the questions real quick.
Okay.
Because we separated out the calendar a bit.
Oh, let's go for it anyhow.
Okay, let me pull up, let me find the Kahoot then.
Let's go for it anyhow. We always like to end with a lively part. Okay, well, we're almost done, Jay. You missed the entire class. We're happy that you made it in the end. I will stop. Wow. So boy, Anthony, we're gonna have to really, now that people can track people's voices, new social engineering tactics using people's voices on phone calls. That is gonna be the,
That's
how do we protect these biometric privacy attributes of us? I
yeah,
think,
they actually say to avoid it. They say do not, when you answer a phone call, if you don't recognize the number, like you can still answer it, just don't be the first one to say hello. Because then as soon as you do, they'll copy what you said hello. Or if they keep asking you, can you hear me? Can you hear me? And you say yes, they'll copy the yes. And then using AI, they will use your yes and get into your bank account with your voice saying that you authorize certain purchases or you authorize change in bank account, stuff of that nature.
I don't know, it's just, it's hard just to
So-
keep. Should we
So,
wait till next week?
Yeah, because I had law enforcement on there too.
Okay, all right, well, let's hold off till next week for our review activity. And because we'll do that, I'll do a little bit more extensive work on NIST for us to look at some examples we talked about. And we'll just plan to see everybody next week, same time, same place. How about that? Watch out for any messages from Diane Murphy.
Well, you should probably tell Diane Murphy that they
Oh,
sent
she
it.
knows, she knows, she
Okay.
knows. All right, everyone, have a great night, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Professor,
Bye-bye.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I was looking at the reviews, chapter review, and it said today I was to present the chapter review.
Oh, do you
I'm
have
not
one?
sure. The Kahoot, yeah.
Oh, well, then
It
like,
was
don't anybody
law
hang up.
enforcement.
Oh, did we lose
It
Sergio
was
already?
so I don't know if the schedule changed or anything like that. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, see, I never know exactly who's supposed to do it. So are you
Okay.
ready to go?
Yeah, I have it.
Do you want to do it?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, that's what I say. Okay, great. Well, let's do it. Oops. Okay, up it's but it's on law enforcement. Oh, well, this is a, we'll see how we do. We might do this one twice. So don't get rid of it, John, okay? Because we'll go over law enforcement. So this is a good preempt, so then you'll kind of know it, and then when we talk about it next week, you'll be looking for it. See, Amadi, how I can spin this? That's why I was very good at sales. All right, anybody else gonna join? All right, let's start it. Dun, 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 dun. Law enforcement. True or false? Right, we all know now that that is false. So who got that one right? Oh, Almighty, you were the only one who went against the curve there. Good for you. Couldn't fool him. Ah, true. So we'll be paying attention to metadata. Anthony, you knew that one. Was that a guess, Anthony? Excellent. Ah, so you've learned that those stricter laws, the states can have stricter laws. I think there was one case though with HIPAA. Okay. Oh, Amani is back, but Anthony's catching up. Yay. Well, that was pretty evenly split there. Amadi, did you have access to these questions before? He's running away with it. That's a good one. So. This is the constitutional law one. Okay. Oh, good for you, kiddos. Anthony, these were high point ones. It's gonna be Amadi. All right. Okay, so we should do this one again next week, okay? John, are you okay with that? But people should then, the good thing is people will be paying attention to these questions when we go through it. So. Very well. Thank you. Thank you very much. Write it down. All right. Excellent. All right. So I'll see everybody next week. Nice job, John. Nice job, Anna. Nice job, everyone. All right. Have a really great night, and I'll see you next week. Same time, same place, 6 o'clock. All right.
Thanks, and you too. Have a
Bye-bye.
great night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Also, reminder, don't look at the sun on Monday.
Yes. And Jenna and Amadi, I will be sending you and Kiddis, aren't you going to Korea too?
I've not been registered though.
Oh, okay. So Jenna and Amadi, look for an email from me. We're going to set up a time to start talking about what we're doing. So,
Okay.
all
Look
right.
forward to
Talk with
that.
you later. All right. Have a
All
great
right,
night.
bye-bye.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Doctor.